Hello and welcome to week 3, or almost the end of this week. And as you know, we had the Collaborate, so thank you for all of those of you who attended and also for helping us, even as ELAs, be able to focus our advice. So this week we looked at actors, but I'm going to have a look at, again, origins, actors and sources of conflict to help you to be able to write your report this week. There's a few things after the Collaborate I just wanted to be able to point your attention to. First of all, the format for a report. In your A1 instruction sheet, there is actually a link there, so have a look and you'll see a format. However, it might say things like findings for the main body. Instead of that, you can use headings because your findings or what you're presenting is actually the headings, and you can use origins, actors and sources. And you might even use subheadings then, for example, where you've got actors. So that would be my recommendation in terms of tailoring it. If you use executive summaries and also for an introduction, no more than 10% of the word limit, so 100 to 150 words would be the maximum. Your executive summary isn't included in your word limit, so it's just the main body of the actual report. Now, a report usually presents data as opposed to making an argument or developing an argument over time as an essay would. Having said that, there still is some analysis because you're using parts of the course modules, the theory, things like correlates of war and some of those frameworks, and you're applying it to your case and letting it come alive in your case. So it doesn't mean that there's no sort of analysis, it just means you're not developing a case gradually, point 1 leading to point 2, leading to point 3, leading to point 4. So coming back to the actual case study, origins, as I talked about in the Collaborate, it's really a bit of history. You want to decide on what your event is first. So if you're doing Rwanda, for example, you might decide to focus on the genocide. Then the origins will be, how did it start? What led into that? You probably want to limit it as a time frame. Most conflicts have history that could go back hundreds of years, even thousands of years. I talked about the Rohingya. I mean, you could go back right to why the Bangladeshis weren't liked in the area. But really you want to try to limit it to what's really important to understanding, how that actual conflict unfolded. So usually just your literature and your research will have a time limit around that. So just make a decision, put a stake in the sand, but ground it in terms of your research. And can I also say, choosing 1 of 5 case studies, again, go into your A1 instruction sheet. There's a link there to videos. So use them. Your actors, try and limit it to no more than 5 because you've only got 1,500 words to work with, but you can classify them at a high level, like, for example, political parties, paramilitary groups. If you're doing Rwanda, you might sort of say the Hutu aligned groups, or you might say the Tutsi aligned groups. So that's one way to do it. And in terms of your sources, I think the modules are fairly clear on that. You might come up with your some additional sources, but common sources are things like ethnic, religious, land and territory, political, like claims for independence. So they're typical sources. You're probably going to find you have at least 2. You normally do. In terms of using one of the models like correlates of war, Uppsala or greed or grievance model, you might even like to have a go at 2 of them. That's up to you. We ask that you do a minimum of 1, but that will be particularly useful with the origins. So how do you know it's a conflict? How are you defining it as a conflict? Not only in the way we talked about conflict in week 1, but in the way in which we're approaching it in this course. So that's where these models will help, and that's what theory often exists to do. It disciplines you in the context of what we call conflict studies. So anyway, hopefully that will help. I found this discussion with some people throwing out some ideas on their actors really useful this week, because you can best exemplify all of this by using examples. So please keep going, keep using discussion threads that way, and you can email me too. Happy drafting, everybody.